welcome to Ecoholics. In the previous few lectures, you must have understood variety of concepts of teaching aptitude, which is a very important module of the UGC NET paper. Today, we are going to understand another very prominent module, which is the research aptitude. Now, when we talk about research aptitude and its prominence in the NTA UGC NET examination, of course, once you are appearing for such an examination where you are going to become a teacher or an assistant professor or a faculty in any university or college after the qualification of the examination, or also you might be qualifying the examination for junior research fellowship and gaining the research fellowship. There you would require the aptitude of research inherently inculcated in you. The basics of research aptitude will be studied in today's lecture. So before we begin and go about learning the various concepts or fundamentals of research aptitude, let's understand what exactly is research. When we talk about research, there are two words over here. Right? The which means to do again, something that is done again, and of course search. The next word is search. What does search mean? Search means to carefully look into something. So while doing any kind of research, what exactly a candidate or an individual is doing, that person is finding new facts, new theories, new concepts from the already available knowledge, already available information, carefully finding newer facts and newer knowledge or newer study from the same topics, from the same subjects, from the same kind of available information. So that obviously is research. And of course, aptitude is the skill that you have to perform something. So when we together see research aptitude becomes a study or a set of knowledge that an individual has to systematically, carefully and patiently understand these various logical propositions that appear in their life, around their environment, okay, especially while teaching. We'll also discuss how research aptitude will combine with teaching. So, and of course, the aptitude or the skill, the knowledge to perform those complicated tasks in a very simplistic manner so as to identify or find generalizations, theories. That becomes your research aptitude. Now, understanding why research aptitude actually has been put as a module in an examination where you qualify to become an assistant professor or a faculty. Why? So let's understand how both of them are related to each other. Now, whenever you become a faculty, there are a lot of tasks, administrative tasks also that you would be doing apart from teaching. Teaching, of course, is a very prime skill that you would have, but apart from that, some specialized administrative skills also are required. For example, there have been some set of databases which have been given to you as a faculty. Students' marks and students' percentage and students' total overall grade. Now you have to find out from this available information what has been the trend of a certain student, whether the student has excelled in their first semester, second semester, third semester, so on, or have they failed to excel, or have they been an average candidate, or are they excelling in only a few topics or a few subjects and not the others? What are the reasons? There can also be researches which can be designed by the teachers, which can be qualitative in nature, so as to understand what are the behaviors of students, why are they behaving in a particular way in a classroom setup. There are certain groups in the class. Why are they behaving in a certain way? Why are the other groups behaving in a certain way? Why are they happy? Why are they sad? What are the concerns for all those students? What are the concerns related to the career of those students? All of these things can be found out very easily if you definitely develop a research aptitude, and which is why it's mandatory for a teacher, for a faculty, for an educator to definitely have some skills with regards to research. Now let's move ahead. Now let's understand the objectives of research. What are the objectives of research? So the research carries three major objectives: theoretical, factual and application based. Let's understand each of this objective of research in a very simplistic way. So let's say when we talk about the theoretical objective of research, which means some concept or some theory is going to be defined, is going to be identified and is going to be made during the whole process of research. So a new piece of information or a new theory will be identified, will be made, okay, in this whole research process. Many a times there are subjects like science, for example, the law of gravity, the law of thermodynamics, okay, the various laws of physics or chemistry or biology or any other such science related subject. The major research that happens in these subjects, or subjects like mathematics, where there are various theories through which you make new pieces of information to be generalized, that becomes your theoretical objective of any research. Then of course we go for the factual objective. Now when we talk about the factual objective, what does factual objective mean? When we talk about factual objective, it means that the research has been done so as to find new facts. So the major focus will be on finding new facts, new observations, something new with regards to the whole environment. Now subjects like history definitely have factual research as one of the very important types of research objectives, because there are a lot of, let's say, archaeological survey of any country, finding some very important species or very important heritage related objects. All of these findings that are happening through the land, through various artifacts, all of that comes under the factual research objective of any module, any subject. Okay, and then last is your application based. Whenever we talk about the research objective which is application based, you are finding new things, you're finding or you're doing your systematic research to find some clarity with the logic behind various things which are happening around the world. The very important example of a subject that may have application based objective is, let's say, economics. Because of the dynamics, because of the dynamism that is presented in economics, every minute, every second, there's something that is changing over the world in economic fields, and it is impacting not just the individuals but the whole society, but the whole economy of that economy and the whole economies of the world. And which is why we would require to find out various logics behind whatever is happening around the world, why there are macroeconomic things which impact the external sectors of an economy, what are the things that are happening around currency. All of these issues can be definitely understood by the view of application based objective of any research. So these are primarily the main factors or the main objectives around research. Now let's move ahead. Now we are going to understand the characteristics of a good research. Now you would say, what is good research and bad research? Of course, we cannot practically bifurcate that into two things, but this is a pattern of research which is more viable, more feasible, more it's better to perform such type of research which have all of these factors, and which is why we are going to learn each of the factor individually. So let's understand the very first point of a good research is the good research will be systematic. Whenever you develop a new finding, whenever you try to find something, okay, for example, I'll just give you a quick example. Let's say that you have lost something at your house, okay, you have lost, let's say, a pair of specs or a pen or anything, you've lost it and you're finding it like a crazy person, you're finding it everywhere in every room, you're all over the place, all over the house, but you're not able to find it, and your guardian, your parent or anybody else is going to tell you, just relax, take a minute and think about it. Where did you go? Where did you keep that particular thing, or what was that place where you walked in or out? And that is how you make a system of facts, and you identify in less than 5 minutes, you'll be able to identify nearly where that particular thing which was lost would be found actually. So which means that systematic behavior of a researcher will definitely lead the whole research in a chronology. So the chronology of facts, of various things, of arrangements, of holistic research is very important. So you know the first step, the second and the last step, where you have to go, the direction in which you will be going. All of that is going to be clear once the research is systematic. So systematic is a very important factor. The next point or the next factor of a good research is that the research should be empirical. So when you think about doing a research and you say, you know, I think that the sky is blue because that is the perfect color in the whole palette. Of course, your observation might be fine, but that is not a scientific logic behind why the sky is blue, right? So which is why the empirical nature of any research has to be very prominent as a factor, because empirical means not based on pure logic, not based on pure logic, but based on some crude facts, some very realistic observations, some scientific observations, or some logical propositions. And which is why the research has to be very, very empirical. You may think about tremendous things. You may think that the logic that you might be thinking is perfect. However, if you do not have evidence to prove your logic or justify your logic, then definitely it is not going to have that empirical character. Empirical character is also required so that your research is universal or your research is authentic. Everybody can relate to it. Your perception might not be other person's perception, and which is why if the theory or the research is not empirical, it just will not make sense to many others, right? So which is why empirical factor is very, very important. Then, now the next factor that we'll talk about, which is very important for a good research, is the factor of critical nature. Research has to be very critical. Now many students misunderstand or misinterpret critical to criticism. Now here we are not criticizing anything, any piece of information or any particular data. What we're actually doing is identifying what is critical or what is very, very important for that particular research. Research has to be very holistic. If, for example, you are researching about, let's say, this board, how was this board constructed, or how was this pen constructed, or what was the technology behind this pen, how many colors can it indicate. All of that you have to have a holistic knowledge about that particular object or piece of information, so that all the critical, imperative, very, very important information about the object will be with you. You will know the various facts, observations, and all the critical or critically important things that are related to the object. Now, the next factor that we have is objectivity. Whenever you look at a research project, or whenever you look at a particular theme for doing a research, you should always know what will the direction be, what will be the first point, and what will be the last point. You should always timeline your project in a way so that tentatively you will have an idea how will you begin the project, how will you go about the project, and how will you end or finish that project. Objectivity definitely means that the core important things that are required for that research are already available with you. You should not lose your objectivity with that research. You should not become very subjective, very biased, or very non-directed towards your research, or your research should not be occupied by other items that are there around in your mind. For example, if you are researching, let's say, about a historical place. Now, a historical place might have a very dynamic things around it. So you might meander your research and you would say, okay, now let me identify, or let me observe those things also. Okay, let me think about this heritage place also. And gradually what you will see is that gradually your data that you have collected, or probably the information that you've collected, is so much that you're not able to research anything. Which is why objectivity is very important. The direction in which you're going to go, the kind of research that you want to do, the plan, the blueprint of that research, everything has to be very much available with you beforehand, right? So that becomes your objectivity. The next one is accuracy. Every researcher aspires that the research that person has done should be accurate. Of course, it's not very, it is possible, but there might be some errors, there might be lacunas, there might be loopholes, and because of that, the accuracy normally suffers. Every research project is created for a particular time period or an era. Normally, a research which is universal becomes a major theory, like a law, like the law of gravity. The law of gravity maybe was researched earlier, and then of course it became like a law. And it became a law because now it's universal. You know that gravity exists. But it does not mean that all the different types of researches also end to become a principle or a law. And the reason is that the accuracy during a course of time might deteriorate or might just diminish or vanish. And that is why during the course of time while you're doing your research, you should be very, you should always look into how accurate your data has been collected, how accurately your data has been processed, how accurately your data has been analyzed. And by accuracy, I do not mean only mathematical accuracy. I also mean that while the data was collected or processed or analyzed, there should not be any sense of bias or prejudice. And which is also one of the very demerits or lacunas why accuracy is always suffered in a particular research. The research might be very good, but by the end of it, the observations and the conclusions might just be vague or might not match with whatever was thought of just because of the problem of accuracy. So that is also very important in a good research. Then you have the concept of generalizability or the process of generalization. Every time whenever a research is done, it's done with a goal so that systematically and with patience and with careful negotiations and careful observations, a research gets directed towards a final destination where a theory can be made or it can be generalized. And by generalized, when I said that a theory, when it becomes like a law which is universal, so that is what is generalizability or generalization. Something that you have observed over the years, over your research, and then you are now presenting it in front of your audience, in front of everybody in the world, and you can definitely say that this particular theory is all pervasive, this particular theory is universal. You go anywhere, at any time, at any place, this particular theory will exist. And which is why the generalizability has a very, very prominent weightage in any good research. Of course, again, it's hard to achieve such generalizations. Also, it's very hard for every other research to have certain generalizations. So which is why it's of course beyond considerations, but if it is there, then of course the research will be very authentic, all pervasive. It will have an immense amount of weightage, and of course it will bring laurels to you. And the last one is logical. Of course, no research is complete if it does not have logic. Any research that you do, any correlation that you make, any information that you process, if it does not have logic behind it or it does not have substance behind it, then of course it is futile and vain. And which is why logical characteristic is again a very prominent part of a good research, or of any research for that matter, right? So these are the various factors which are very important characteristics of a good research. So today we learned a basic fundamental of research aptitude and concepts of research in this lecture. We will have more such lectures with regards to research aptitude, which are very important for the examination of NTA UGC NET. The examination is also coming very soon, so you may practice such questions and analyze these concepts. We'll see you soon in another lecture. Till then, goodbye, and keep subscribing and liking our videos. Thank you.